Hi everyone, welcome to another quick session. In this session, we will discuss another two security models. Um, Harrison-Russo-Ullman model, we can also call it HRU, right? Non-interference model. So now let's get started um, regarding these models. So HRU, it is it addresses bad access happen over time. Uh, so, for instance, think like audit or analysis. So, for instance, analyzes how access rights evolve over time, determine whether unauthorized access can ever occur. So, it checks the future potential security issue. Uh, so, if uh, access rights evolved over time. So, what could be the potential security threat? So, it is not a prevention. So, we need to think it does not talk about prevention, how we know prevention, right? Mm, It, in fact, it talks about, it talks about uh, what could happen in case if security threat is rights have evolved over time. So now let me tell you before we discuss this any further, this HRU model. So let me tell you one thing regarding this Graham-Denning model. So the HRU model complements the Graham-Denning model. I let you. I tell you in a minute what it is exactly. So Graham-Denning model, we know that focuses on what operations are allowed right now users permission lifecycle. HRU focuses on what could eventually happen over time due to those operation, the safety problem. So for instance, as we know that Graham-Denning model, which we have discussed previously in our previous session, that Graham-Denning model think access control lifecycle rules. Um, for instance, who can create users, who can delete user, who can grant permission, who can revoke permission, who owns object. So it talks about user access control lifecycle, create, delete, assign roles. This is a Graham-Denning model. But it does not ask if we allow these action, what could go wrong later in the future. So HRU, I think future risk and safety analysis, right? So what it asks. Can a user eventually gain a right they should never have? This is called the safety problem. So, for example, Bob can create a user. Bob gives permission to another user. The user may one day become admin. So that is a future security risk. So HR is about permission, propagation, rights leaking over time, eventual privilege escalation, even rules were followed. HR does not check current access, it checks possible, let me write it down, it checks possible future state. It checks possible future state, right? If user gain more and more access, eventually what could be a security threat? A, syst- a system can be correct under Graham-Denning model, but it could be still unsafe under HRU. So Graham-Denning model checks allowed permissions, HRU checks long-term consequences. I think that is a better wording. Long-term consequences. So it checks, right? So these once again, these all are concepts, right? So how we what type of tool we use operationally to figure out, so that's a completely different thing. But this is something which is concept to give an idea, right? So conceptually you learn about those models, right? So how you implement them in real time, so you might use different tool for that, right? Okay, so user lifecycle, permission, ownership, gram tunning model, future access, eventual right, safety, privilege escalation over time is HRU. So um, I think that's that's important to know what it exactly check. So another model which we have also discussed in our previous session, that take grant model. Take grant model sits between Graham Denning and HRU. It focuses specifically on how rights can spread, propagate between subject and object. Graham Denning, what administration action are allowed. Take grant, how rights are spread. How can rights move from one user object to another? It also does analysis, right? So it only provides us the map. And HRU, future safety, right? It talks about future safety, right? What could be eventually security threat could be. So could this propagation lead to unauthorized access eventually, right? Given these rules, um, right, and take grant at this propagation path, is the system safe in the long run, right? So once again, um, um, I think is there sequence of operation where user B eventually gain admin rights? It's HRU, and this is exactly a safety problem. So for exam tip, I would say if they mention take grant right propagation graph, take grant, this is related to take grant model. Future access, eventual privilege safety problem is HRU. Create delete user or permission, it's a Graham Denning model. This is a quick exam um, exam tip, right? So now I would like to highlight a couple more important term, so that we in fact we should know. I think that also we might hear about those terms time to time. For instance, we hear very often privilege, privilege escalation, right? It is intentional abuse, right? So you got an access to the system as a technical user, but somehow you have manipulated and you became admin user. So that is a intentional abuse. But another term which also we should know, it is privilege creep. Privilege creep is unintentional accumulation, right? So in this particular case, um, privilege creep happens when a user changes role over time. So one user changes his or her role, or he or she move from one department to another department, and old permissions are never removed, right? So access slowly accumulates. There is no malicious intent behind it. A normal user end up admin like power without hacking, right? So because most breaches are not hackers, they are excess ex, excess excess former roles, forgotten entitlements. Privilege creep is a silent risk. So where each more, I mean, if we talk about um, privilege escalation is something is intentionally, but privilege creep is not an intentional thing. So privilege creep is neglect. Privilege escalation is attack. Once again, Graham Dunning life cycle control, take grant permission flow, and HRU future danger. I think that might help you to understand for the CISSP exam. So I think now we have thoroughly discussed. I hope we have now clarified our all the confusion around this topic. So then now the next one is non-interference non-interference model. It's a very simple model, but let's quickly go through it. So non-interference model is high action must not affect low, right? No leakage, no signals. Think like a side channel prevention. High system activity invisible to low systems. Um, and covert channel isolation, multi-level system, right? So it focuses on confidentiality, information flow, not permission. Must not affect lower levels. Rise action at higher security level must not affect lower levels, right? So and so if they talk about covert covert um, channels, right? So these type of attack could be avoided. Um, Isolation. So we make sure isolation, right? Multi-level system. So top secret system processes data. Public system should never infer anything from it, even timing or behavior. So I think that's it about all these. That's it about these models. So I hope I would be able to explain about these two models. Thank you so much for watching this session. If you have any feedback or question, please share in the feedback section.